This episode is brought to you by Excel Coaching Academy. Hey guys, I'm really excited to let you know that I started a mindset coaching business. So what I want to do with this business is I want to help entrepreneurs, business owners, salespeople, leaders, and fitness enthusiasts or athletes develop the right mindset to increase revenue, improve business or performance, and overcome the challenges needed to become the best version of themselves. You can get more information about this by emailing info@excelcoaching.academy.
I had a lot of clients that used to use it, and their files would just mysteriously disappear. I think they've put a lot more time and money into it and research into it. So I think that problem's gone away, but they're always changing so fast. So it depends. The one we use, I've used for like 1,500 episodes, and I'm a huge fan.
I was going to say, so I've used it, I don't know, a year now, and I do feel like it's gotten a lot better in the past year, because I've had that too. Like my thing was, it was really annoying. It would, like, I would talk to somebody and it would be, I don't know, whatever the seconds are, whatever the conversion is, it would be like an hour and a half plus 51 seconds. But the other person would have like 36 seconds. Well, that difference matters. You know what I mean? Because that means somewhere along the way, like, there's a lag in the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, I never had to contact somebody and say, "Hey man, I know you just spent an hour of your life talking to me, but I don't have the files." That would have sucked, man. I'm sorry to hear that you know people that went down that route, because I've been there. I've been on the other side of that, but I've been there with Zoom. So the guy was using Zoom, and I don't know what happened, because I've never been on the host side of Zoom, but whatever happened, we talked, man. We had a great conversation. I mean, it was great. It was like we were firing on all cylinders. There was great chemistry and everything. And a couple of days later, he got with me. He was like, "Man, I've been trying to figure out how to tell you this." He was like, "But I don't know what happened to it." He was like, I was trying to figure out, like, if I could pay you for your time." I was like, "Bro, first of all, you don't have to pay me. Second of all, like, I'm sorry, man, because that was a great conversation." Anyways, so
that always sucks, because then the thing is, when you try to have the conversation for the second time, you don't know if you're saying the same stuff in this interview or you already talked about it. It messes everything up. And
if you do, it's not authentic, because it's like you're trying to say the same thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's I don't know, man. It's just like, gosh, I got to reach out to that guy though, because we did have a good conversation. And he had a decent podcast. Like, he had decent traction and all that kind of stuff. And
nice.
I don't know, that whole Zoom thing. But then I also feel like there's a quality thing on Zoom too. I don't feel like Zoom has the same quality as
they don't. No, they dumb it down. If you have like a 4K, well, even Riverside doesn't do 4K. But if you have a really nice webcam, Zoom, they cannot handle that. So, and audio is not good on Zoom.
Yeah, it sounds like a phone. It sounds like you're talking to someone on the phone. Yeah,
it's not good. Yeah, but it's cheap.
Yeah,
right. It's like $15 a month.
That sounds about right. Like I said, I don't use it commercially, but well, listen, man. Before we dive too deep into this, so the way I normally start, ask you guys to introduce yourself, and whatever you want to say is relevant, whatever you want to share about yourself, and then we can go from there.
All right. So my name is Kevin Palmieri. I am the host and the founder of Next Level University, a global top 100 podcast with 1,915 episodes, I think, as of today. And I am somebody who found quote unquote success in life. Although it took me a long time to ever get there, but I still ended up sitting on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide 2 years after the most quote unquote successful year of my life. I left my old life to do this podcast and self-improvement and get a little bit better everyday thing for a living in 2018. So I've been doing this full time for the last coming up on 7 years now.
Wow. Congratulations.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Both on both triumphs. There's a lot of victories right there.
There's a lot of victories. There's a lot of losses along the way, and I'm sure we'll get into many of those today based on how you usually have deep conversations.
Yeah. Okay, so you were going through this period of life, just so I understand correctly, you were going through this period of life, sounds like really depressed.
Yes.
And you had some sort of event, whether it was a thought or a mindset shift, something happened.
Yeah.
And then you started pursuing this podcast. This worked out very well for you.
Yeah. So I am somebody who I don't know how many people would have ever bet was going to be successful. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. Didn't have money growing up. Decided not to go to college. And I just worked every odd job. I worked at a gas station. I did tiling, personal trainer, truck driver, forklift operator, on-call firefighter, HVAC, just all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up getting a job in an industry called weatherization, where I made a lot of money. I went from making $15 an hour as a construction laborer to anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour at this new job.
Wow.
In my mind, Cody, this is it, right? Everything I did up to this point was worth it, and this is where I'm supposed to be. At 25, if you looked at me from the outside looking in, you would see a young man who has a high-paying job. My girlfriend at the time was a model. I had a nice car. I had a brand new apartment. I had great friends, and I was getting ready to compete in a bodybuilding show. So I was quite literally in the best shape I will ever be in.
Mm-hmm.
Health, wealth, and love. It looked like I had them all. My girlfriend ends up leaving me because I'm just a shell of a human at this point. I'm struggling. I'm riding the struggle bus. Nobody would ever know it, but I was really struggling. When she left, I convinced myself that the biggest thing that I was dealing with was not having enough money. So I'm going to go make more money. The next year, I made the most money I ever made. I made $100,000 at 26. And then I got to the end of the year and realized I have no idea why I do almost any of the things I do. I'm so unconsciously gliding through life. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So I did what any gentleman in his mid-20s would do. I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast, and I wanted to have deep conversations with deep people. And that was the beginning of this. I never planned on doing what I'm doing today. I didn't know most of what I'm doing today is even possible. I just wanted to have cool conversations with cool people and do something that I actually enjoyed, because I felt like I spent most of my life just trying to get the next paycheck, trying to look good externally. And that this was a very unique thing for me to have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, man. So that's crazy. So, what this really makes me think of, I think it's an Albert Einstein quote that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life thinking it's stupid.
Yeah.
And I think the golden nugget here to bring out of this is that there's a thing for everybody. You know, there's several golden nuggets, but one of the big ones is there's a thing for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that this is what I tell people all the time. And I know that you see this firsthand. We live in 2024 going into 2025. Like, we have technology at our fingertips that people didn't even have. We didn't even have some of the stuff we had like 5 years ago, let alone like 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. How old are you?
35.
Okay, so I'm 31. I'm a little bit younger than you, but I mean, we're still close enough that, you know, man, like back in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, like all the stuff that, like us doing this right here that we're doing right now, like in the mid to late 90s, it was unheard. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was happening somewhere, but it was probably unheard of. Dude, I remember when we had internet on the computers, like the dial-up internet. And I remember when cell phones had, I think it was like a package for a cell phone was like a couple megabytes for, like, that was your internet on your phone for that month. And anything that you went over that was like astronomical in price. And now, like, this video is probably going to be something like 15 gigabytes when it's all said and done. And it's uploaded without any wires. It's uploaded through Wi-Fi to the internet. People are going to consume it without, I mean, it's just crazy. Like, it's crazy the technology we have. And it's like, I don't know what the future looks like from here, because I think AI is going to eliminate a lot of repetitive tasks, dangerous tasks. Hopefully we're going to use it in a good way. But it's like everybody has this place, and it's like finding that place is something I talk about a lot, because that's essentially what purpose is, like finding your purpose, your place in this life. Something else you mentioned on too. The outside, you know, being successful on the outside. I think, and this, you're not the first person. I've actually heard a lot of people say this. I've actually heard coaches say that they help people through like a midlife crisis, which I would say, fortunately, experience this early on. That way you could make the shift and adjust. Yep. But some people don't feel this until like mid 40s, you know, 50, something like that. So, but I've heard coaches say that they help people through this, and basically what it is like exactly what you said. On the outside, it looks like they look successful, but on the inside, something major is missing. Something major is not there. And so, you being a person who's been there, what do you think that was missing? Because you had it all. You know, you had the beautiful woman, the beautiful girlfriend, the apartment, the cars, everything. So what do you think it was that was missing right there?
I had a misunderstanding of what my core values, core beliefs, and true core aspirations were. It was that I think this is one of the issues where when you see someone, you say, well, if I was where they are, I'd feel this way. Gotcha. Maybe you have different core beliefs, core values, and core aspirations than they do. I think that was a big piece of it. The other big piece of it is I hadn't done any of the internal work. So I was under the assumption that if I got in really good shape, like I won my class at my bodybuilding show. I have pictures. You can see every vein in my leg. You can see I was jacked.
Yep.
I thought if I got in really good shape, that would make me feel good about me internally. No, I felt really good and really confident about the way I looked externally, but that's a different game. Growing up, feeling like a short, insignificant, undervalued kid, I thought if I just found beautiful women to date, that would make me feel really good about myself. No, I mean, externally, yeah, it felt good to go out in public or whatever. It doesn't do anything internally. The car, same thing, right? I always wanted a Subaru WRX. I wanted it to be loud. I wanted it to be fast. Had it. No, that's not it. So I think the issue became every time I felt an internal void, I created an external goal that I thought would fix it. And every time you take the key and you put it in the lock and it doesn't open, it kind of breaks your spirit. And the big one for me was if I can make $100,000 without a college degree, I will be the most successful person that I know personally. That will be the unlock. And when I did it and I put the key into the lock and it didn't fix it, that's when I started second guessing everything. So I think it's a self-awareness thing. That's why I'm so big on self-awareness, because I don't know if you really can succeed without self-awareness, because success requires alignment and alignment requires awareness. And that's why I'm so big on it. I went on a podcast the other day and we were talking about finance, and they said, what's the biggest thing that changed between when you were super broke and where you are today? And I said, awareness, self-awareness. You'll never get me on an interview where I don't talk about awareness. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. We talk about fishing, I will find a way to bring it in. That's my goal.
Yeah. So it's funny that you bring that up, because I was going to say the way this resonates to me is others like letting somebody else define what success means, and then treating that as if it's a copy paste cookie cutter type thing. And it's simply not. I mean, there are people who spend extraordinary amounts of time and energy, and unfortunately they get to a point like what I think which you were, where you basically spend all this time and energy and you essentially lose hope, because the thing that you're chasing that you think is an outside thing, you realize that you can't find that, and you become, I don't want to say you become hopeless, but you lose hope in the situation, because it seems like you're never going to get the happiness or whatever it is you're chasing. But it's like we have and I don't want to lay everything at the feet of society or other people or civilization, because I'm not a big believer or proponent in the victim mindset. I think that no matter what it is that happens to you, unfortunately, bad things happen to good people. And I'm not saying anybody deserves that, but I am saying that you have a huge piece in fixing that and healing from that and fixing your life. But it's like that people feel these things. They have this definition of success that's defined by somebody else. But I think a lot of that is, it's like the education system, your social structure. You see the like, I don't know about when you went to high school. When I went to high school, it sounds like it was around the same time. It was like university was pushed. Like if you didn't go to university, if you didn't go to college, like you were just going to be. You were going to be a failure. And what I mean by that was you're going to have a trades job, a blue collar job. Dude, I know people in the trades right now who are way more successful, my definition of success, than people who went to college. Why? Because they have a decent job. They have what looks like a healthy family. They have a sense of purpose in their life because they're doing it. I mean, it's like, but it's like we have this skewed version of, or this skewed vision of what success is, as if it's the same to everybody. You know what I mean? And I think I think we're saying the same thing. I think you're saying self-awareness and I'm saying a different definition. I think it kind of boils down to the same philosophy.
I would agree. And I'm very similar, where for me, it had nothing to do with society. Like, I won't blame society. I grew up feeling insignificant, uncertain, didn't have money. I assumed feeling significant, having ultimate certainty, and having money would fix all the problems that my childhood created. And I think there's one of two ways to go. You grow up and you see all of the stuff that you lack, and you assume that's the way to live life, to fix the voids, or you grow up with certain abundances and you try to replicate that because of how good it made you feel. So a good example, let's say let's say growing up, you had a great family. Mom and dad were there. They were able to come to all of your sporting events. They were able to have dinner with you every night. You might literally shape your entire life around that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to trade school. I'm going to create my own business, and I'm going to have my hours from 7 to 3. And will I make $1 million a year doing that? I don't care, because I'll be able to be home every night, dinner with my family and at my kids' sport game. That, to me, that is a better life. I always say this. Again, better life, if that's a line for you. There's a lot of people who, especially podcasters I'll talk to, and they say, dude, I can't wait to get to where you're at. I know, I appreciate it. And I work 12 hours a day, almost every day. My business partner works 80 hours a week minimum. This was one of the most challenging things ever. I was broke. I couldn't afford Christmas presents for my now wife. I got sent to collections. My mental health has been through the ringer on this journey. There are certain pieces of me that I have lost that I will quite literally never get back. Mm-hmm. And I would do it all over again. But I'm not going to have kids. That's planned. There's a reason for that, because I would not be able to be the type of dad that I want to be. But this mission is more important to me than that. It's very easy to say, well, I'd like to get where you are. I totally understand. I don't know if you'd actually like to do what it takes to sustain it. And I don't ever want to lie to you about what it would take, because if I do, I'm misleading you. I also don't want to come off as supremely negative. Like, my life's really good. I'm very blessed. I'm very privileged. I'm very grateful. But it's also the hardest it's ever been. And it would be way harder if my core values and my core beliefs and my core aspirations weren't all in alignment. And yeah, we're saying the same thing, just in different words and different stories, ultimately.
Yeah. So I know when people say that, man, they're giving you a compliment, as they should. I mean, you know, you clearly have the, whatever it is that you're doing, you clearly have it figured out.
I appreciate it.
But I think that we need to be careful when we assume that we would like to switch places with another person.
Yeah.
You know, because like you said, I mean, yes, on the outside, maybe it looks good, but I mean, are you going to do the 12-hour days? You know, you're going to make the sacrifices, like all those things. So, but it's like, and that's another thing too, that I'd like to get your opinion on, especially with what you and I do is so much in the, like, the social media space. Social media is great, but it glamorizes a lot of things. It glamorizes a lot of things and leaves out the bad parts. One of those being content creation. One of those being entrepreneurship, relationships. It's everybody. Okay, on Facebook, everywhere else, Instagram. It's either that somebody has had the worst relationship they've ever had and they just broke up with that person, or they had their best relationship. There is no in between. Like, you don't see the arguments. You know, like, you just see the Christmas pictures and you're like, oh man, that, you know, wish I had that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't. But it's like everything on Facebook, man, or social media. It's like, I won't say everything. Most things are like it's like a highlight reel. It's like just the best parts. I don't know how else to say it other than the best parts. But it's like, when we see these things online and we compare ourselves to that, I think we just have to be careful of that. You know, I think we have to be careful, because we don't know what's behind it. Like, you know, you can see you can, if you're kind of familiar with the content creation or entrepreneurship, you maybe can assume, but you don't know about the 12-hour days, the sacrifices, you know, what it takes. But I mean, I think it's worthy of, for lack of a better word, awareness, to be aware of the fact that we don't know. Like, we can say, we just want the result. Basically, what I'm getting boiled down to, we want the result. We don't want the work that it takes to get there. But I was saying this to say this, that leads up to I feel like when we put people on a pedestal, and I'm not saying these people don't deserve it or do deserve it. That's not what I'm saying. But it's like, when we put those people on a pedestal, another thing I don't like about that is, like, you know, athletes or whoever it is, it's like we subconsciously, we're saying to ourselves that person is capable of doing something that we can't do. And that's almost like an excuse for us. Like, oh, well, you know, they're an athlete. Of course they're going to look like that. You know, like, I can't look like, I mean, they're a professional football player. They're going to look like, I can't look like that. And like, we're subconsciously saying this to ourselves, like, oh, this person in this field or whatever is like so much better than I am. And it's like, whether we're aware of it or not, I think that's a limiting belief for us, you know, that enforces it. That enforces that limiting belief.
Well, I think I'm never going to look like LeBron James. And I'm 5'4" on a good day. You know, that ain't it for me. But it doesn't mean I can't further my potential.
Right.
I agree. It's almost like, well, I'm never going to be a millionaire, so I shouldn't focus on making any more money or being more conscious with the money I make. Well, that's not the answer. That's copping out. You can't just cop out. You can't just sign on the dot and say, I'm not willing to do anything. This is one of the best things that ever happened to me is I would see someone on social media and I would actually get the opportunity to meet them because of the podcast.
Right.
I have met and spent time with some of the, statistically speaking, the most beautiful people on the planet. Trust me, they are way more insecure than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Way more. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it if I told you. There were episodes that we did with models that wouldn't let us post the video because they didn't feel like they looked good that day. And I'm not making fun of that. I empathize with that.
Right.
As someone who is supposed to look good all the time, and here it is. If I looked like you, I would be supremely confident.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, because you don't know what type of reaction that person gets in public. You don't know what it's taken for them to get there. So that's where it gets really wonky. But I agree. I think social media is meant to be a highlight reel because what's entertaining gets views. This is always the analogy I use. Go look at people's profile pictures. Many of them are in tuxedos. Many of them are in suits. Many of them are in wedding dresses. That was a once in a lifetime event. And now that's their profile picture. That's not what they look like every day. Just like, this is essentially what I look like every day because I'm wearing a freaking hat and a t-shirt. But my profile picture is from a photo shoot. I did that photo shoot once and I got a bunch of pictures that I can use forever. That was like 2 years ago. So again, I'm guilty of this. I just try to admit it for awareness. I don't post the days where I'm crying into my pillow. Nobody wants to see that. But I do post on my story all the time. Hey, I know I'm supposed to jump on here and get you to run through a wall. I don't have it today. Today kind of sucks. Honestly, today just kind of sucks. I'm not feeling it. I'm going to give my 50% effort that I have. And today, that's all I got. That's my 100 today. Do your best, get after it. Sometimes that's what you get from my stories, but I want to try to live in the truth as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, so this is great. I want to ask about this. This is kind of an interruption, but I want to ask about this before I forget this. So you're talking about we see these very short glimpses of another person's life on social media, wherever it is. But then content creators, somebody like yourself, somebody like, I guess, the space that I just realized that I'm trying to also step into. I didn't even realize it till now, but it's like you're putting yourself out there on a much longer timeline. Like, I don't know how much, do you know approximately how many hours of podcast you have out on the internet?
Oh man. This might actually be my 3,000th episode recording. So if you,
that's crazy.
Right. So, but if you average that, let's say it's 30 minutes, you're looking at 1,500 hours. So yeah.
Wow.
Thousands of hours.
Yeah. So, okay. So the average, I guess most people who use social media, they are consumers of content, not creators of content. So already, like by default, they are not open to criticism because they're not really putting themselves out there like that. Yep. Somebody like you, on the other hand, like you have thousands of hours out on the internet. Like, how do you deal with that reality? Because like you said, the person on social media who has the profile picture with the suit, okay, that's a very small portion of that person's life. You don't really know much about them. I mean, maybe you know them personally, but they're probably not putting every single thing out. But like you go on a podcast, you might misspeak, you might say something to defend somebody. You're just being yourself. And like the window of where you can be analyzed is like, it's exponentially larger than that one single moment for that. So how do you handle, like, I don't know if that would be like stress or pressure or criticism, maybe a mix of all of it. I mean, what is that like?
Yeah, I don't think about it as much as you might think.
Okay.
Because I've done this so long at this point where I know I'm going to say something dumb. It's just a matter of how dumb will it be,
right?
And how do I make sure it's not the dumbest thing I've ever said? I'm gonna misspeak for sure. At this point, I'm more focused on authenticity than everything. So if you ask me a question that I don't have an answer to, I will just say, honestly, I don't know, or I haven't done enough research to speak on that topic eloquently. Like, I don't really know. I haven't studied it. What I will say is the times where, like, I've gotten some negative stuff on social media for sure. And I get very triggered and I get very defensive. Because to me, think about this. If you knew the amount of time I've put into trying to be a better person so I could help other people, I can't imagine you would ever try to tear me down. But if you are struggling and I am a mirror in any way, shape, or form, I might not make you feel very good about yourself. And honestly, 25-year-old Kev, I don't know if 25-year-old Kev would like 35-year-old Kev. I'm confident, and I never used to be, and I thought confidence was arrogant. I'm all over the place, and I'm sure 25-year-old me would be like, dude, don't you get sick of seeing yourself on camera? Yes, I do, honestly. I think in a lot of ways, I'm now what 25-year-old Kev villainized. So I have empathy to a degree, right? If you say some just hugely disrespectful stuff, like I don't know if I'm going to be able to empathize with that, but if I trigger someone, I have empathy for that because honestly, I might have actually triggered myself. And the other thing is I'm always trying to get better. So this is like a practice. It's a big game, but at the end of the day, this is another practice because I get to do this tomorrow. So I'll reflect on what went well. I'll reflect on what didn't go well. But when you're here to add value and you're here to be yourself, I can't really answer anything incorrectly because I'm just trying to answer it the way I would answer it. So I think it's a muscle. It's a muscle that gets flexed over time. When I was a bodybuilder, I stood on stage in my underwear, for lack of better phrasing. I had been working out and taking pictures of myself for decades up until that point. It just is exposure therapy, I think, at a certain point.
That makes sense. And one thing I wanted to say too was that, when you talk about this criticism and people say things, do things online, whatever. You mentioned, I don't know exactly what you said, but it made me think of this. It's like first of all, if you meet somebody in your real life, in your real personal life, and they have a bad reaction to you, if they say something disrespectful or whatever, I think a lot of people who have done this work on themselves would look at that and say, okay, well, that's not a reflection of me. This person has something going on, with themselves. Now, if you do something to somebody and they react, that's different. But I'm saying if it's just like unsolicited thing. Yep. But it's like with social media, it's almost like it takes the humanity out of it because it's not like we're attacking a person, we're attacking an avatar on a screen. You know what I mean? It's almost like there's a disconnect there.
Yeah. Are you a fan of mixed martial arts? Do you watch fighting?
Yeah, well, I train here and there. I don't train as consistently as I should, but
no, but I don't think anybody does. That's like the most common thing. So I'm a huge fan of Paul Felder. Paul Felder is a former UFC fighter. He's a commentator. Just seems like a good dude. Somebody commented one time on one of his posts. They said, "You're a far better commentator than you are a fighter. Like you really sucked as a fighter." And I think he messaged him back and said, "Like that's really hurtful. Is that something you would say to my face?" Yeah. And the guy said, "No, you kicked my ass. That's why I said it here." And it's like that right there is that's the issue. That's really the issue. But again, I don't know if we really understand how much that type of stuff can affect people. If you look, my business partner is a really good example. My business partner is 6'2", blonde hair, blue-eyed, used to be a fitness model, has a master's degree from one of the best colleges on the planet, is a genius, is the most consistent human I've ever met, exercised for 1,000 days in a row, like just a robot. People think that he doesn't have feelings. So people think that they don't need to give him love when he does well, and people think that he just can take all the negative feedback all the time. At the end of the day, he's a human too.
Right.
He's a human with feelings too. Are those feelings different, and does he have thicker skin? Yeah. But I think we assume, well, if I was that person, I wouldn't need love or whatever it is. If somebody commented on my post, I would never feel that way. You don't post anything. You don't post anything of meaning. Yeah, if you post a meme, everybody's going to laugh. But if you put an hour into a really personal piece of social media content, you record that video, you put yourself out there with a risk of looking like an idiot, and then somebody says you're an idiot, that sucks. That just sucks, unfortunately.
Well, it does suck, but I think this is an important part of like where empathy comes in, because you're talking about this guy, like these people, whoever's successful in whatever way it is, and it's like we're assuming that these people, whatever traits we're associating as desirable or successful, or if I was this person, I would feel X way.
Mm.
We're assuming that person feels the same way. Like, I don't know, maybe this person, maybe he doesn't like the fact he has blonde hair or whatever it is. Whatever the trait is a person admires, or like like if I had your exposure on social media or insert anything else, I would feel this way. Well, you might not feel that thing about that way.
Right,
like
right.
it's our own individual story, and I think that's why empathy is so important. But I do think that social media takes the empathy out of it, because it's like there's I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. I don't know. It's not a meme, but it's like a video of it. It's really depressing, actually. It's like they'll have like Facebook. They'll have a person looking at their phone, and like their face is like attached to their phone almost. It's like these really graphic little comic looking things. Well, I saw one that was like a Facebook. It was like the little, I don't know what you call it. It was like the thing that looks out of a submarine, the little
periscope.
The little thing that looks out of a submarine. It was like that because Facebook's shaped like the F, and it looked just like that. And it's like the person was there and like looking into the outside world from their house or whatever. And it's like, I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than it takes the humanity out of it,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that social media, and I'm saying this as I'm streaming to social media, I don't have anything against social media, but I think it's important for us to be aware of how we are, like the fighter example. You wouldn't say that to this guy in real life. I promise you wouldn't.
No.
Like, don't say it to them on social media, man. Like, these are still people. Like, this is just because we're separated by a screen and, thousands of miles or whatever it is, like, that doesn't mean that it's there's not a person that's on the other side of that. And I don't know, man. I think the empathy of that, this kind of leads back to the conversation we had before. I think putting like being aware of that person's experience, whether that's good or bad. I mean, it might be good to you, but it might not be so good to them, especially if you don't know all the details. I think it's like there's no way to get by without that.
I don't know if there is a solution. I think empathy is the solution, right? I just don't know if empathy is one of those things where I don't know how you get that to spread. I don't know how you get that to the masses, because I think it requires, all empathy really requires is, I don't know what it's like to be Cody.
Mm-hmm.
But I can imagine based on what you tell me, and then I can try to feel the feelings that I would feel in a similar situation. I don't know what it's like to be you. No idea.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. I don't know what it's like to be a supermodel. I don't know what it's like to be an NFL player. I don't know what it's like to be a musician. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like to be a woman.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. I'm not really worried about walking down a dark alley. I've trained martial arts. We'll figure it out, right? I don't want that to happen, but that's not running my mind. I saw a really interesting post, and it was kind of a joke, but it was a man and his, I guess, girlfriend walking down the street, and in his mind it was, all right, there's 3 guys to the left, exit to the right, that dog coming up, it looks friendly, and then again, this was a meme, it was a joke, but it was like in the girl's brain, it was like some song, and she was just like dancing, and again, I don't know what it's like to be on that end. But I have to empathize with stuff that I don't understand. Right now we have a 19-person team, and I don't know, 70% of our team is women. I've learned so much about that perspective.
Right.
And here's the other thing about leading a team. There is deaths in the family. There is kids that get sick. There's bullying, there's all sorts of stuff that happens that I haven't experienced. And it's really just given me a perspective of trying to empathize with an experience that I have not had yet. And I think it's really hard, but I do think it helps you become a better person. And everybody has a ways to go. I just know I'm way more empathetic than I used to be. I used to be the guy who said it must be nice.
Yeah.
I was that guy.
Well, so I don't know, man. There's not many things that's going to teach you empathy the way leadership will, because especially somebody who's in your spot. If you're working 12 hours a day and you don't mind doing so, and you're sacrificing, what you said were pieces of yourself you're never going to get back.
Yeah.
It's like a low what would you say? A low emotional intelligence leader will have somebody who has a death in the family or something happens where they can't show up to work, and they're going to be like, what? I'm working 12 hours a day. I'm over here, and you can't show up to work. Like, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, leadership you're either, as a leader, you're going to become emotionally intelligent and self-aware and learn how to empathize with your team, or you're simply not going to have a team, in which case you're not going to have an operations. So it's like, I don't know many things that will teach you empathy the way leadership will. And also too, just like meeting new people, especially people outside your culture, man, people outside of your culture from different parts of the world. It's just like having this openness of like that there are people in the world that are much closer to you geographically than you think. We like here in America, we're fortunate enough, I mean, we have our problems, but we're fortunate enough to think that like, oh, well, this is a first world and these problems don't exist here. No, dude, this is closer than you think. Like, there's people here in America, like that maybe you wouldn't even realize it, have these issues, whatever those issues are. So yeah, I think leadership is a great way to learn empathy.
It's a lot, man.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I never, I never knew. I didn't know this was going to happen. I didn't expect this, but it has been one of the best things ever because it just gives you perspective and it teaches you a lot about yourself. I hate giving people feedback. I can't stand it. I hate it. I can't stand it. Why is that? Well, there's layers to it, but it's because I feel like I have gotten so much feedback on this journey that sometimes I just wasn't ready for. And it just hurt me so deeply. And eventually I was able to use it in a constructive way, but I just don't want to hurt anybody. I'm not a fan. You very rarely will hear me say something super polarizing. Like I tend, in our podcast in general, we live in the middle. It's for me, there's not a lot of buts. There's a lot of ands. There's a lot of, it's the genius of the and. It's how do I hold two seemingly opposite thoughts in my mind at the same time? Because here's the truth. There are some people in the world that need to work more. Just like there are some people in the world that are overworking themselves and they need to take R&R because you're going to burn yourself out. That's the beauty and the genius of the and. Some people on the team want to work 12-hour days. They want to work more than I do. Other people don't. And I think it's important to know that. And I think it's also important to understand that my goal as a leader, essentially forever, is to be the person that works the most. That's, I will never ask somebody to do something that I will not do. I just don't believe in that. I don't like that. I tell the team all the time, I signed up to essentially trade my life for this. You didn't. I would die for this tomorrow. 0 questions asked. My wife in this journey, 0 questions asked. I'm all in. I pushed all my chips to the center of the table and I will do whatever it takes within alignment and within moral and ethical beliefs to accomplish this. That's not what people in a team are signing up for. That's not, you're not signing up for that. I signed up for that. My business partner signed up for that. I don't want you to have to sign up for that unless that's something you really, really, really want. And I'm so tied to it emotionally. It's my baby. So I can't imagine anybody else is really going to want it like that. Understandable. Understandable.
Yeah. So it's crazy that you're saying this, man, because I remember back when I started so I have a landscaping company outside of this podcast and this other stuff that I'm doing. And I started it when I was like 20, right before I turned 21. And I remember people telling me like about hiring people. First of all, staffing for any business is like an ongoing, that is a huge piece of it. I understand it's difficult and it takes time. And once you find the right talent, you really want to keep those people on board. I understand all that. But it's like people were saying, like, nobody's ever going to work. It's not going to matter as much to them as it does to you. Nobody's ever going to work it like you. And there's some truth to that. But it's also too, like, the people that were telling me this, I don't really know that they were in leadership positions. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we're all just looking from the outside looking in. And I mean, maybe they meant well, I don't know. But I just remember thinking about that stuff and I was like, damn, well, I mean, per what they say, I'm never going to be able to find anybody to employ or to work. And like I said, there's some truth in that. Like, and understandably so, nobody is going to work it the way you do. But I think that's the science, man. That's that balance of, like, you know, of spreading the vision and the belief for the project or the company or whatever it is to your team and not being a tyrant about it. That's a very, very tricky line to walk, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think people care about it. People care about the success of your business when it's connected to something that they value.
Right.
People on the team probably don't care how many listens we get today. It's not about that, but they care about whatever the opportunity gifts them. It creates opportunity for them to spend more time with their family. Well, we don't, and we never will have a brick and mortar business. You can work anywhere from the world. You make your own schedule as long as you have a laptop and internet connection. You don't have to come to an office ever. It's not going to exist. We'll never have an office. It just doesn't make sense. We're a digital business.
Right.
That's something that a lot of people aspire to. If maybe your thing is seeing people face to face, we're probably not the company for you, because that happens like once a year. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes on meetings. So yeah, but here, this is the interesting thing. And this is what we started with. There's a lot of people, I've talked to so many people who say, Kev, you work too much, man. You need to work less. No, what if I like what I do?
Yep.
You are taking the way that you potentially feel about what you're doing and you're putting that on me. That's not fair. Just like I shouldn't come up to Cody and say, dude, you're not working enough. You need to be working more. Unless you come to me and say, hey, what do I need to do in order to get this result? And I have the answers. Let's say I have the answers. But you can't just put your beliefs on me, and I can't put my beliefs on you. A lot of people say I should work less, or I should do this, or have you ever thought of doing it this way? I want to do it the way I'm doing it. That's why I'm doing it that way, with the understanding that that's probably not what's best for you, and that's totally fine. That's why I don't tell you to do it the way I do it. But it's all it is. It's core values, core beliefs, and core aspirations. I think those are the biggest three issues in any relationship or awareness.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. So what do you think? I mean, because so a lot of people, when they their belief gets challenged, whatever belief that is, when it gets challenged, these people really get defensive about it. And I wonder why that is the case. Like and it could be a political belief, a religious belief. Right now we're in a time of year that there's holidays coming up. There's different belief systems. There's different political beliefs. There's all these different things going on. But it's like some people are very much attached to the way they see the world. You know what I mean? And if something comes along that challenges that, they get really almost defensive. I mean, what do you I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Your beliefs end up being your identity at some point. One of my beliefs is self-improvement could change the world. I'm obsessed with self-improvement, right?
Valid.
Valid
belief.
yeah. I mean, but if somebody came to me and said, well, Kev, here are 5 reasons why self-improvement wouldn't help. I would have to sit with that and say, have I dedicated my life to something that doesn't matter that much? Like, what does this mean about me? I think our values and our beliefs dictate what we do, what we don't do, and honestly, what we dedicate our lives to. You're doing things in the way that you're doing them because you believe blank. You believe it's optimal. You believe it's best for the country. You believe it's best for the world, yourself, whatever it is. When somebody comes to you and doubts that, you start doubting your identity. And the weird thing about a belief is it starts as a belief, and then it becomes behavior, and then it becomes habit, and then it becomes, eventually it just becomes kind of your identity, and it becomes a piece of you. So it's not even that it doesn't feel like somebody is doubting your belief. It feels like they're doubting you as a human.
Right.
And you have to defend, have I invested 7 years of my life or whatever? I built this social media page up about politics. Like, how dare you question what it's not, I don't think it's about the thing. I think it's about what the thing represents within you.
Dude, that makes so much sense. Because I do feel I'm a big believer, pun intended, I'm a big believer in identity because I think it's huge. I don't know if you've ever heard Tony Robbins refer to identity. He talks about if he's have a person that quits smoking cigarettes and they say, well, it's been X number of days. Well, the identity is still there that you're a smoker. You still have that identity with yourself. And until you can break that, I guess maybe cycle, until you can break that cycle and say, oh, well, I'm no longer a smoker, that's a significant change in your identity.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it only makes sense that and I've said this before too, if you are an entrepreneur and you say, well, I am an entrepreneur, okay, that means you're going to do things to keep your business alive or for your business versus a person who says, oh, well, I have this thing that I do and it's whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's a different identity in that. Like to say that you're an entrepreneur or a fitness enthusiast or a believer of X or supporter of X, that puts you into that space. And it's like you are the person who does the things that makes that thing happen. It's a completely different thing versus, whatever. Like, I like going to the gym. Okay, well, you like going to the gym. So that means if you don't like it, you're not going to go. Like, is that what that means?
I feel that. Trust me. There's most days I don't want to go. People ask often about consistency. They say, why is consistency so important? And there's so many layers, right? It's
right.
Essentially, you can't really accomplish anything without consistency unless you get lucky. Then I always talk about, I want you to imagine two scenarios. Scenario one, you sit me down and say, Kev, if you can do the splits, the gymnastic splits, by this time next year, I'll give you $1 million. What is the best strategy for me to accomplish that? Is it to do it once a week, once a month, once a quarter? No, it's to practice every day. That's the best way for me. And honestly, I might even accomplish the goal early. But if I go from 7 days to 6 days to 5 days, the likelihood of me being able to do that most likely diminishes. Now, again, that's just an example. But one of the reasons consistency is so important is because it reinforces identity. The reason we do an episode every day is because it reinforces the identity of I am a podcaster and I am ultra consistent and I'm learning and growing every day. I am becoming the type of person who's capable of creating and sustaining the level of success that I desire every day, little by little by little. That's a really big piece of it. And now we will never miss an episode. I can't. It's against my identity. I literally would have a mental breakdown because I would literally say, I have been saying on the podcast for the last however many years, self-improvement in your pocket every day, from anywhere on the planet, completely free. Every day is in there. That's a big piece of our identity. It's in our branding. We talk about it all the time. It's very, Tony Robbins also has something, I don't remember the exact quote, but it's essentially, it's really, really challenging for somebody to live outside of alignment with what their identity says they'll do. It's really, really hard to do that. There are certain things that I just don't ever miss because that's who I am as a person. Just like if you're at a bar and you do identify as a smoker and somebody says, hey, who wants to go out for a smoke? You probably don't even think about it. Just like if you're not a smoker, you don't even think about it. Like, no, I didn't even hear you say that because it's not in my reticular activating system. I'm not familiar with it. That's not the flow of it. So yeah, identity is such a big thing that it's really deep. And I think it's really scary to get into that sort of stuff because you have to question your beliefs and you have to question your values and why you do things that you do. And do you regret any of the stuff that you've done based on where you've ended up today? That's where a lot of the stuff is. And it's scary to explore that stuff for sure.
Well, and this is without a doubt going to piss some people off, but I don't know how you can have a belief if you've never tested it. So I'm a believer, like I believe in a higher power. I believe there's a God, there's a person that's created all this stuff. And I don't believe that because that's what I was taught as a child. I believe that because yes, I was taught that as a child, but I've also explored I've never, claimed to be a believer in other things, but I've explored other things like, oh, well, let me look at this philosophy. What does this philosophy say? Oh, what about this over here? What about this? And I'm like, that still doesn't resonate with me. So like, and I'm not saying that I am in no means a professional belief tester or anything. I'm just saying like, I don't know how you can claim to believe in a thing if you've never either looked at it from another angle yourself or had somebody else look at it. Cause if not, then that's just like, because that is the same framework. If you here, we're using a religious belief, but it can also be the same framework about something that you're capable of. Okay, well, if you had a sibling or a parent or somebody in your social circle as a child that told you were not capable of a thing, and now you believe that as an adult, have you ever tested that belief? Like somebody told you you could never shoot hoops like LeBron James. Have you ever tested that? Like, like
I've tried. It's not good.
Well, I didn't mean to use your example. I was just saying, but it's like, have you ever tested that belief, man? Because I think, and I say this all the time, I think a lot of us, and this is every single person, I think we all have beliefs that we have about ourselves that's really not even our beliefs. They were given to us by another person, another thing, a school, parents, unfortunately, siblings, unfortunately, since we're using religious institutions, unfortunately. Like we have these beliefs that are imposed on us and we hear them for 16, 17, 18, 20 years. And then we become an adult and we're like, oh, well, I guess it's just how it is, like, and
Yeah.
so that leads me into another question that I wanted to ask you. So you were going through this whole thing, you had this big sort of shift in your life. You started this podcast thing. And I would imagine, just because of the nature of the business and the success rate that so many people drop out, you probably had a lot of people around you that were like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is, this is a waste of time, waste of money. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. Maybe you had people that supported you. But
Less than
you
most.
might have,
I had less non-believers than most, because for most of my life I've been an underdog. So I think people always, it's been a very interesting character study, because I've always been an underdog, and I don't think people thought I was going to be very successful. My business partner is a genius, so everybody thinks he's supposed to be the most successful, and he gets far less support than I do. I've noticed a drastic increase in how much doubt / lack of engagement I've gotten since I started working so closely with him. It's almost like, well, he's going to win anyway, whatever. Like, whatever. But with me, in the beginning, I didn't go to college. I didn't have a dad. I was broke. I had so much self-doubt, all that stuff. I think those are the people that you want to see at the end of the movie accomplish their things. Yep. The people you don't are the jocks who pull up in the car, who are jacked and have the dream partner. They have all that when they've always had that, or it seems like they've always had that. So I got some of it. One of the kids I worked with, I told him about it, and he's like, dude, what are you doing, man? You're never going to be Joe Rogan. It's like, yeah, you don't get it, man. You don't get it. And I actually ended up, at my last job, I ended up applying for a position, and I didn't get it, and he got it. This kid ended up getting it, and I ended up quitting there shortly after. He called me drunk like a year ago and left me a voice message, because I didn't answer it. And he just said, hey, Kev, you're doing so. I see what you're doing, man. Awesome. Congrats. I'm proud of you. I love you, man. We should connect. I texted him back the next day, and he never responded. All that means to me is he knows he was wrong. He feels a lot of shame about it. And he had a drunk moment of courage. Understandable. We've all been there. And the next day when he woke up, he said, damn, I was vulnerable, and I'm not ready to go down that rabbit hole yet. And I most likely will never hear from him again until if he gets drunk next time and decides he wants to message me back. My family was the one who, they were supportive, but they thought I was crazy, because I went from making six figures to, I'm never going to get another job again, and I will either die on the side of the mountain or we will somehow make it to the top. And I would go see my mom and my grandmother, and they'd say, did you find a new job yet? Mima, I'm not, that's never going to happen. I'm not looking for a new job. And they knew how bad it got. And the understanding that I came to that always helped me a lot was, it's not that they think I'm going to fail necessarily. It's that they can't imagine how they would succeed in my position. Totally understandable. And It's not that they want me to fail. They just don't want me to suffer. And they see me suffering, and they want to try to take that pain away. And honestly, the easiest way to take that pain away would be just to go to get a job. And it would take some of the pain. It wouldn't take away the big piece of the purpose and all of that. So I got that far less than other people. I've always wanted to do something different. I just never knew what it was. When I was in high school, I was training to fight professionally. I wanted to fight. I wanted to be a mixed martial artist. Everybody thought I was crazy. Like everybody thought I was nuts. It was like, I don't really care. Honestly, I want to do it. Let me try it and see what happens. The podcast was the same thing. Going to the fire academy, people didn't understand that. The job I got when I was traveling all over the place, people thought I was crazy for that. But it was always, one, I already feel alone. I already feel like a misfit. I already feel like an outcast. I might as well ride the momentum of that to try some stuff that is kind of off the beaten path. If I'm already going to get judged for who I am, might as well try to find a way to make it beneficial.
Yeah. You mentioned the fighting. Anytime you try to do anything that's like very big in your life, whether that's a business, a podcast, professional fighting, whatever, it's you're going to get tested, man. And I don't know any other real world tangible example other than that, or better than professional fighting. Like the training that you have to do to become a professional fighter. You can say that you want to do that. Like we'll find out.
Yeah.
I don't know how much sparring you've done with some guys, man. That's like actual fighters. But you don't even have to spar really hard. I mean, it does not take a lot. It does not take a lot for you to figure out like, okay, this is for me or this simply is not. But
yeah, man. I was lifting, and there was a bag at my gym, and I was like the guy who wasn't a professional that looked really good hitting the bag. I'm good. I know how to I'm good with that. And this guy came up to me, and he was a teacher at the local Muay Thai gym. And this was after I had been out of martial arts for like 12 years. And he's like, dude, have you trained in the past? I said, yeah, I did a lot of jiu-jitsu. I did a little bit of wrestling. I did some Muay Thai. And he's like, dude, you got to come to our gym. And I was like, no, man, this isn't what you think it is. I promise. And he's like, no, you got to come. You got to come to a class. And I was like, all right, I'll come to a class. And at the end, he's like, yeah, you want to do some sparring? And I was like, not really. No, not really.
Absolutely not.
This isn't going to go. I know you. I don't know if you think like I'm the guy, like the guy that you found in the gym that's going to turn. I'm not him. I promise. I've tried. I'm not that good. So I ended up sparring with one of the professionals, and he was very respectful and very kind, and he knew.
Yeah.
And it's just the most humbling thing in the world, knowing that this person could take your life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even exaggerating.
Yep.
One switch kick to the head, I'd be done, and then it would just be, however they wanted to put a bow on it. There's nothing more humbling than physical activity. Jiu-jitsu is another. I went back to jiu-jitsu, and I was doing it, and then I just got too busy and I couldn't. But I was telling my wife, there's something about rolling with a black belt who just could kill you.
Yep.
I don't know how to explain it better. Like, they are so much better than you. Just a scary, highly respectful amount. This person has put in the work. There's almost nothing I could do to them. It's a very, very humbling thing. But I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, that humility carries over to empathy and respect.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think somebody who goes to a martial arts class and gets their ass kicked by the black belt understands how constructive that is, then goes on the internet and talks crap about other people. No, you don't, because you know what it's like to be the one who's getting your ass kicked. Right.
Well, and I love that you say that, man, because for me, that's definitely being an entrepreneur and a business owner. That's definitely something I saw that connection. So it was like the reason that I love it is because it teaches you like how to take a loss. And so you're not really, it teaches you self-confidence, but not it does teach you self-confidence in the way that, I can defend myself, but it's not that sort of confidence. It's like, if I try this thing and I fail and I metaphorically get my ass kicked, like it's going to be okay. I'm going to, it might suck in the moment. It might hurt in the moment. It might hurt the next day or the next week, but it's like, it teaches you how to take a loss. That's why, other than the practical reasons of protection and all that stuff, I think everybody should train some sort of martial arts for some period of time, especially men, because, I think humility can go a long way. I'm sure either from yourself or from others how dangerous pride can be.
Oh yeah.
So, but it's like that humility of taking a loss, man. It shows you that it's like it's okay. Like you might do this thing, and that's what I'm saying. I saw the translation with me with business, like it translated over to business. Like I can make this cold call. Maybe I embarrass myself, but it's going to be okay. Like, because I'm going to learn from this interaction.
Yeah.
And not to mention, jujitsu is just like, jujitsu is the best workout you're ever getting in life. Like it's
absolutely brutal. It looks, look, when I went back to jujitsu and started grappling again, one of the things I was so excited about is when I watch the fights, when I watch UFC almost every week, whenever it's on, I'll actually be able to understand. I'm not going to be that guy who says, dude, what are you doing? Get up.
Yep.
No, he's tired. He's tired. He's fighting one of the best people on the planet. He's tired, understandably so.
Yeah.
It gave me a lot. Again, it gave me a lot of perspective, and there was nothing. And I think this happened a lot more back in the day, but maybe it doesn't happen as much. But I'll never forget when I first started going. This was back in like 2006, maybe I started. It was always like the super jacked dude who would come in and be like, well, I don't know about all this. Like, I'm undefeated on the streets. It's like, Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
They're gonna put you with like a pretty good blue belt, and that they're just gonna ragdoll you around, and you're gonna get so embarrassed. Hopefully, to your point, you take it constructively and you come back tomorrow. Not, well, this is whatever you'd say. Well, no, you cheat, whatever. I'm the way my style is designed is for the streets. It's like, okay, whatever. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, man. You think you're in shape until you try jujitsu.
100%.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
100%. And I mean, I would never go to the ground in a street fight, but like that, 140-pound blue belt that is going with he's rolling with the 200+ pound guy off the street, like it's just because I've been there. I've been that guy that went to the jujitsu gym, and I was like, okay, I'm in decent shape. I got some strength here, whatever. Dude, I got rolled, like, and like this guy he had to be $140, man. And I was like, dude, there's no way. He was like, yeah, I'm a blue belt. I was like, no, you're not. There's no way. He's like, yeah, I'm a blue belt. Anyway, so it's
there's levels.
Yeah, there's definitely levels, but it's great, man. Look, I just want to say, like, this is phenomenal. We have been going full speed for like an hour. There's been not a single hiccup. This has been like,
that's what we like, baby. That's what
this is mental jujitsu right here is what this is. Like, this is great.
Can I add something to that real quick?
Yeah.
So again, my business partner and I have had deep talks behind the scenes and I don't know if you've interviewed him. If not, you guys would be two peas in a pod, whatever the saying is. There's my mess up for the episode.
There you go.
It used to get to the point where him and I would be having such deep conversations, and I'm not kidding, my brain would just be like, and that's it. We can't go any deeper. There's no more to retain. That's a really good example too of how much you can evolve as a human. I'm telling you, 6 years ago, I wouldn't be able to have conversations like this. The downside of that is you don't care enough to know that because nobody cared back then. Nobody was listening, so it didn't matter. That's the weird thing about survivor bias is the people who make it seem like they're really great at everything when for most of the time they weren't that great at everything. It's a weird thing. So I just wanted to throw that in because I appreciate the mental jiu-jitsu very, very much.
Yeah, I mean it's been phenomenal. I do have to save a little bit of gas because I have a networking event to go to tonight, a holiday party.
No worries.
And I'm going to be on for like 12 hours straight, I feel like. But no, this has been great, dude. It's very clear that you're familiar with this space. And I don't know I feel like we could probably talk for several more hours, but
I'm happy to come back in the future. Whatever you want. I'm happy for a part 2 for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And also your partner, if he does interviews, I don't know if it's just you that do the interviews.
No, he does them. I'll connect you for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
I got you.
So I don't want to forget this part. Do you have anything to promote? Where can people find you? Do you have
Okay. The podcast is called Next Level University. We do an episode every day. We have deep talks like this. If that's your vibe, make sure you listen to Cody's episodes first, and then you can come check us out.
I love the name too, by the way. Next Level. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So I feel like this is gonna be another rabbit hole for us, which is fine. We got a little bit of time. This is a question I ask everybody before we close, which is, I know it's hard to say the most important, but if you could kind of pinpoint one of the most important lessons you've ever learned, it could be from your professional life, your personal life, if it's something you're comfortable sharing.
Oh, of course.
What do you think is one of the most valuable lessons you've ever learned?
Ooh. One is big things start small. Very, very simple one. Big things start small. Everything starts very small. That was very helpful for me. The one that I've really been thinking about lately is from day to day, progress is invisible. From year to year and decade to decade, progress is impossible to miss. I think one of the biggest issues that I had at the beginning was I just didn't understand the importance of time. I was unable to connect. What's the point of reading 15 pages? Like, that's nothing. Well, 15 times 7, that's what, 105. You do that for an entire month, that's 420. You do that for a year, you're reading 6,000 pages. How many books is that? I just didn't understand the importance of that. So yeah, that is the new thing. The new thing that I'm really focused on is that, because from episode 1 to episode 2, you're almost no better. But from 2 to 100, you are drastically different. And then from 100 to 200, it compounds because your skills are increasing. And then from 200 to 1,000 you're a completely different human. And then 1,000 to 1,900, woo, I am so much different than I was even a couple of years ago. But if I stopped after the first episode, I would assume that I could never get good at the thing. That is the lesson that sits with me the most today.
I love hearing that, and there's several reasons. First of all, this episode is probably going to be early 60s, low 60s for me. And also too, that's a new one. I haven't heard that. Because you were talking about consistency earlier, and I think when you're in it, they always say when you're in the trees, you can't see the forest unless you step out of the trees. But I think that's a pretty good point, though, because I think sometimes it is hard to see progress when you're making the progress, when you're taking the next step. If you're climbing a staircase, it's maybe hard to see the full scope of where you've been. But I think that's important, man, because I think a lot of us too, like we get so caught up on how much farther there is to go. Like, oh, I did this episode or I made this call or whatever it was, and it kind of sucked. But like, look how far you've come. You know what I mean? Like, look at the progress that you've made. I mean, I remember when I put out my first little podcast episode, man. First of all, it wasn't even another person. It was just me. That was the first mistake right there. Just me by myself. And then I actually deleted those. They're no longer on the internet.
Someone has them, Cody. Someone has
dude,
them.
I don't know. I don't even know if I put them like public. I don't know. Hopefully nobody has them. They were just that bad. But like, I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to talk. And like, I listen. If I were to listen to that thing right now, I do have it. I never deleted it. It's just not on the internet. But I might go listen to it after this. I might just go see like the improvement. Like,
I dare you to share it.
Oh man,
I dare you to.
So
because
okay,
that's inspiration for somebody who's starting. Ours were garbage too. My first episode was the worst thing you'll ever hear. It was absolutely freaking terrible. But
so
whatever.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't do that, but here's the problem. I think there's a liability issue because because like I was so this is a personal growth podcast, and like basically what I was what the episode I'm thinking about, I think there was only one like this. I was trying to teach people how to do things like that. I was like fitness, cold plunges and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's probably not wise for me to, without a disclaimer or something,
fair.
You know what I mean?
That's fair. I don't want them to pick you up on that. That's fair. I respect it.
It's at least interesting to think about, just to think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cause I think I had, I know the microphone was different. I had one of those little, like, I don't know the mesh microphone.
Yeti?
Like, and it wasn't a Yeti. It was like a $30 microphone from Best Buy. And it was like, I might have had the same camera. I'm not sure, but it's just, I don't know, man. The improvements that I just did a podcast the other day that I was able to make an improvement on from then to now. I mean, it's just like, just these little tweaks along the way. But, I think just looking back at where you were and how far you've come, I mean, you might not where you want to be yet. Like maybe you're not there yet, but like you're definitely not where you started,
Yeah. Perspective. I think perspective requires 2 points. Requires where you are and what you're looking back on comparing. This is the other thing too. This is a quick quote that I had the other day. I used to care about how fast I could get there. Now I care about how good I'll be when I get there. I don't want to fumble the opportunity. If I'm getting to the Super Bowl, I want every practice along the way to be powerful and impactful and intentional and efficient. It used to be that, like, when am I going to get to this? When am I going to get to this? When am I going to get to this? And now it's, when I do get there, I'm not going to stop until I do. I want to make sure I'm as good as humanly possible. That's the goal.
I love that, man. And I actually needed to hear that today because I was having a business conversation with somebody earlier, and I was like, he had a very sound, logical, why am I at a loss of words here? Recommendation for me. And I was like, okay, but like, what if we did this? He was like, yeah, that's several steps ahead. We're not there yet. I was like, oh, well, I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like I can do it. He's like, no, I'm telling you, like, this is how you do it. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll just be humble and learn for a minute. But like, I needed to hear that today for sure.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, man, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I don't know. There has to be some sort of software, AI or otherwise, that has a word count. I would love to see the word count of this conversation.
I'm very curious.
Because I don't think there's been any dead space. It's been like the entire time, which is great. I love it that way because, sometimes I feel like sometimes as a host, at least this is me, like I want to make sure that I'm giving somebody a productive but also entertaining experience. You know, if they come on, they're sharing some stuff. And sometimes, man, it's hard to be like, you know, if like I think the hardest ones for me is when I clearly do not prepare enough. And there's been several of those.
Of course.
You know, like I'll have somebody come on that's like, you know, talking about a topic that I won't mention right now, but talking about a topic that I'll be like, oh, I know enough about that. And then I'll go to talk to him and I'm like, dude, I did not fucking prepare enough for this. It's like, it's very clear. And then you're like, that is real. That is mental jujitsu right there. That's the real jujitsu, because that's when you're rolling with that black belt and you're like, damn, dude, I gotta be entertaining to this person, but also I gotta like try to dig out some knowledge here.
Value.
And it's very clear that I'm very ignorant on this subject. So that's been one of the big learning curves for me, is making sure I take the time to prepare. And it's nothing crazy, you know, just, I mean, if there's going to be a topic that I'm not so sure about, I'll maybe skip it for now and invite them on later or something until I know more about it, unless I have the time to dive into it and learn about it. But yeah, I don't know, man. I try to be a good host, and I try to make sure that
you're a great host. For me, it's always about so two things. One, it takes two to tango. So if this episode went remotely well and you think I did good, I'm not saying that. It's because you're a huge piece of that. That's something that I think people forget about. It's like, oh yeah, I had a guest on today. They were great. You made it great for them. You lined it up. You made it easy for them. That's one. And then two is I buy way more into the person than almost anything else. If I vibe with the person and I feel like the person's a good person and they're doing well in the world, the conversation is usually really good. So that's another reflection on you as a person more than anything else.
Well, I appreciate that. It's definitely been a great episode. Before we close, man, I got to ask you about your ink.
Yeah.
So does it have a story behind it, or?
Yeah. So when I was 16, I got barbed wire, as one does, but I ended up getting it covered up. So I got barbed wire when I was 16, and then I got never quit when I was 18. And then I was like, you know what? I want a sleeve. That sounds like a good idea. So the sleeve I have it starts on my chest with an angel and devil playing chess for control of the world. And the devil is winning in my tattoo. And then it comes down to my dad and I supposed to be holding hands, but since there's no connection, our hands aren't actually connected. And then it's just in this forest of zombies and monsters, because I feel like I've gone through most of my life kind of without guidance. I feel like I kind of had to experience a lot of the stuff by myself and figured out. And then underneath I have a rose coming out of the concrete, because no matter where you start, you can change your life.
I love it, man. I love there's a story behind it, because some people get a tattoo because like they saw it on a wall in a tattoo shop. You know what I mean?
I promised myself if I was after 16, I got the barbed wire because who doesn't want barbed wire? But after that, I said it has to mean something to me. And I think I'm going to get my cats. I have two cats, Fudge and Ace. I think I'm going to get them on my hand. You have one on your hand? I can't.
No, I have a sleeve that comes down, and I got two. I got a inner forearm and an outer forearm on this arm.
I'm scared of the hand, man. I've heard things.
I don't want to do. I'm not going to do hands or fingers or neck. Certainly not face. No offense to anybody who has a face tattoo.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm unemployable already. I have a giant gap in my resume over the last 7 years. So at this point, it is what it is.
Well, I think the tattoos are changing, man. I think people are getting a different perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't know. Do you know who Andrew Huberman is?
Yeah.
I didn't realize he's tatted up.
I didn't realize that either until I saw him in a tank top or something. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, he's jacked.
He's jacked.
He's jacked. And you don't know that because he's always wearing the collar shirts or the suits or whatever. And then I saw him, I don't know, in a t-shirt or something one day, or he was working out doing one of his processes or what it was. And he's like jacked, dude. Yeah. He's jacked and he's tatted. I was like, okay, well, he's obviously, and then that to me, he was already a scientist, but that increased his credibility that much more, because I was like, okay, when a dude like that is telling you how to be healthy, like that's the guy you got to listen to right there. You know
100%.
What I
mean? There's a guy named Lane Norton. I don't know if you know who Lane Norton is, but
I think I've heard of that name.
Yeah, he is. I don't know what his credentials are, but he's like a scientist when it comes to food. But he's one of the strong. I think he has like most of the powerlifting records. So it's like, oh, and he's a bodybuilder. It's like, oh, okay. So you're the guy who like does the research and then you go put the research into effect. I'm going to mess with you. Like, let me see what you're all about. I like the walk the walk. I like the walk the walk. There's a big, it's important. It's important to see that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, man, it's been great.
Likewise, brother.
It's been a phenomenal episode for sure. I am going to stop the video. Let me explain to you really quick about the upload and all that good stuff. But if, yeah, we'll definitely have to do this again because I think we're just scratching the surface here.
I'm in, brother. Anytime.
I appreciate it, man. Hang out for just a second. Hey guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you enjoyed this podcast or enjoyed this episode, you can find more at Pure Wisdom Podcast. This is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. There you can subscribe, like, and share and interact with all of our content. Again, we appreciate it, and we will see you next time.